Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. On this Thursday, glad to have you for Ask the Theologian, where we take your biblical, theological, and worldview questions. We give them a rightly divided answer. We throw a little bit of bad humor and a bad attitude into, and we have a lot of fun doing it. So let's see what's on your mind today on this Thursday. Thursday, we study the book of Ezekiel on Thursday nights too, 7 p.m. Mountain Time. We'd love for you all to join us. Don't forget, this is Time Change Week this Saturday. I'll give you a call at 2 a.m. if you'd like to remind you. Let's go down to William, Southern California. Can you recommend a good commentary on the book of Romans? Which ones have you used and liked? I can't. There's the answer. I can't. I'm sure there are some good ones out there. Let me say that differently. Surely there are some good ones out there. I have a very hard time finding them. Even I've ordered some rightly dividing commentaries, and I find myself disagreeing with a lot of it. Certainly the evangelical commentaries, I just don't find that much help in them. So when we're talking about the New Testament, typically I use no commentaries at all. Sometimes I will use what is called a critical commentary. Now, a critical commentary is almost always written by a liberal, not exclusively, but almost always written by a liberal. But they're designed not so much to give insights and application into the theology of it. A critical commentary is designed to give you a lot of information about the grammar, about other resources that use this grammar word in that way. And so they are much more technically based, and the only time I look at them is to, if I'm struggling with a little bit of how is this sentence put together or how is this paragraph put together, I'll use some of those, but I really can't recommend them because, again, they're going to be written by academic liberals, and if they do throw in some theology in there, it's going to be wrong. So I use them for language helps, basically. So when I study a book like Romans, I will spend all my time analyzing the sentence, trying to get where I understand the scope of which it's written, and within that scope then, in the paragraph and the sentence structure, to make sure I really know what's the subject, what's the verb, what's all the possibilities grammatically in the way that it could be translated. And then I spend the rest of my time doing cross-references. I do that through key words as I look up those words in the other places of Scripture, and I do that through things like the Treasury of Scripture Knowledge or the Schofield Reference Bible, and follow all those. Typically, that gets me to the point where I can take and go with it. Not much help. I wish there were some better commentaries on the New Testament. There's lots of commentaries on the New Testament out there. And when it comes to some specific books, every now and then I'll have stumbled across one that I like. But on Romans, I can't give you a good recommendation. Sometimes I will use commentaries more on the Old Testament than I will on the New Testament, but it's almost always Jewish or rabbinical commentaries, because I find that they have a lot of insight that isn't just the standard pablum that has been delivered in the Christian evangelical circles. And because of that, we just started carrying on Dispensational Publishing this series of Jewish Old Testament commentaries. And so when you look at these, for example, Jeremiah right here, it speaks a little, from the publisher and what they have to say, and a little disclaimer that I've got that it is from an Orthodox Jewish perspective, not from a Christian perspective. But you can go and click down at the bottom, the category. If you just click Jewish resources, it'll bring you to all of these that were written by Jews for Jews, and we're selling them for a Christian audience. Now, it's mostly commentaries. And we've got some other resources we're about to add there too that I think give some really amazing insights Sometimes right, sometimes I question it, but some amazing insights nonetheless into Old Testament passages. So when it comes to commentaries in general, I am more likely to go to an Old Testament passage than commentary than I am to a New Testament commentary. And that is because, again, the historical insights that you can gain from the Old Testament tend to be stronger than when you're dealing with a Pauline epistle. I wish I had a better answer to give you, William, on that. I don't have that better answer to give you, and so unfortunately, I have to deal with that. I don't seem to be getting texts here, Nathan. I'll let you see what the problem is there, because I got a couple of questions and I'll run out here in a moment. But thanks, William, for the question that I could not answer to begin the day. I appreciate that. Let's go to Luca, a question that also came in yesterday, and sorry that I had to push that off to today. But Luca's question: do you know of any resource or learning how to read the Hebrew of the Tanakh, like that of David Allen Black's Learn to Read the Greek New Testament? You know, there's a couple of resources. Learning Hebrew is, in one sense, a lot easier than learning Greek, and in another sense, it's a lot harder than learning Greek. How's that? Here's the sense in which it's easier. You don't have near the vocabulary in Hebrew as you have in Greek. And so learning the vocabulary, learning the structure of the sentences is not quite as difficult. You can take a single, let's say, Hebrew 1 in a seminary level class and be pretty proficient at translating if you take and use it. Very few Hebrew students in seminary will take Hebrew 2, Hebrew 3, beyond that. Now, Greek gets studied year after year after year, and it just takes, the more you study, the more you learn. So Hebrew does become a little easier to learn at. And in my opinion, there's a lot of fun in translating Hebrew. The reason it's fun is because Hebrew words, again, there are so few of them that they have such a broad meaning that you're able to come and say, oh, well, you know, this could be this, but you also have the possibility of going completely a different direction in this and seeing how does that affect the translation of the text. So I think there is some value in it. You know, there is a website, I believe it's called Hebrew for Christians. Let's see if we can just pull that up. Yeah. Hebrew 4, the number 4, Christians.com. Hebrew for Christians. Now, this is going to very much be on a layman's level, but it's going to help you to learn, for example, the Hebrew alphabet, even some of the mysteries. You know, it's called mysteries. I don't know that that's the best term, but I understand what they mean. The mysteries of the Hebrew alphabet. Learn Hebrew online. They've got a course that you can take. I have not taken the course, but I have gone into this website on a number of occasions, and they do have some grammatical help, some things that can be helpful for that. So here's the biblical Hebrew grammar, and you can go through, for example, and learn the alphabet, the vowels, the syllables. And I think that this part of it is self-learning and free as you go. Here's some Hebrew homeschool. You might want to try that one, and do it as an adult. So you work through 1.1, 1.2, and go through that. Now, it's going to be self-learning. learning the Hebrew alphabet. And this takes a while. This is one of the reasons I said earlier that it is, in a sense, more difficult. The Greek alphabet, at least we can take it and say, you know, an alpha looks kind of like an A, and we can look at that and know what sound should come out of our mouth for the most part, with some exceptions. But you look at the Hebrew alphabet, and it doesn't even start. You know, the A's over here on the right side, and it, you know, Aleph through Tav, and what is all of this? And you know, how do you even learn to write the Sheen, for example? With all those little things that go off of it, and what's that? So that's a little more difficult for us. But you know, they've got nice flashcards in here and things, and you can even sing it. How about that? And it goes through. Now, some of the just the commentary that you find on Hebrew for Christians probably is a right divider you're going to discount. But if you take that grammar, I think it's going to be pretty good. Let's see. Jim is in Piedmont is telling me about ancient-hebrew.org. And this is by Jeff Benner. Let's see. My name's Jeff Benner. My wife Denise and I want to thank you for visiting. And here's a free ebook, a mechanical translation of the book of Genesis that he is offering, and looks like a lot of Hebrew resources here, Ancient Hebrew Research Center. So check that one out too. I'm not familiar with this one, but I'm familiar with Jim in Piedmont. So ancient-hebrew.org is another one you can check. Now, I wish, again, I am not a Hebrew expert. You notice in our Ezekiel study, we have the Hebrew interlinear. I don't use that near as much as Greek. I don't refer to the Hebrew words nearly as much as I do. So that is one in which some others probably can give you a stronger answer in that.
I can't find it now, but they used to have free Hebrew and Greek.
Corey is telling me that Dallas Theological Seminary used to have, he's not sure if they do, used to have a free Hebrew course online. Check it out. My guess is if you just look at Learn Hebrew, you'll probably find it. But let me give you another recommendation. This is twofold. One is, if you want to learn Hebrew, go ahead and learn it from a Jew. The Hebrew for Christians, it's nice, but it's going to have a Christian twist on it. And they're going to stick some of their Christian theology in there. Now, just find somebody that teaches Hebrew. The nice thing is that modern Hebrew is the same as biblical Hebrew. So that's different than Greek, for example, where modern Greek is different than biblical Greek. But you can learn modern Hebrew and read biblical Hebrew, and it'll go. There'll be a few words and a few very minor things that you'll bump into somewhere, but it's not a bad thing. So find a Hebrew speaking course, even the what's the language learning things, Babylon or whatever, Babel, those kind of programs. You can buy the Hebrew programs, and those are mainly geared towards speaking, and in the Hebrew Bible you need it for reading, so you need to be careful about that, but make sure whatever class you find, and I would find one that's fairly cheap, but whatever class you find one that is going to help you read. Now, here's a second thing that for someone who is solid in their theology can help. Go down to your local synagogue. In your local synagogue, you've got a rabbi, and he might even have a Hebrew class or might want to teach Hebrew. If you're in a large city and it's a busy synagogue, then maybe they're not going to have time for it. But or maybe they've just got classes they do all the time. In synagogues, they teach people to read Hebrew because they go from the Hebrew text like the one behind me. So find your local rabbi. We've got 2 or 3 of them in Taos, so I'm sure that you all have a rabbi in your town too, or nearby, and find those places, and you'll be able to go with that. Now, I agree with what Dan has to say here. Best to read the Bible before you tackle Greek or Hebrew, I'll add. You can do just fine with a King James Bible and a Strong's Concordance. And so when you're ready to have some additional insight, which comes in great, and some people just love to learn languages, and some people do well at learning languages. I say go for it at that point, but it is a good point. Let's go to Charles up in Tulsa. Didn't Paul also say in Acts, though I'm just wondering, that he should not preach Christ where Christ was preached, shouldn't build upon another man's foundation? That's actually in the book of Romans, I believe. And I think that there's an interesting thought about that. Let's see. Sorry, I had to put in a lot of text there to find Romans 15:20. And in Romans 15:20, he says, "Yea, so I have strived to preach the gospel, not where Christ was named, lest I should build upon another man's foundation." Now, I actually think that, let's take this in its most literal way. Paul is saying, I am not going to preach the gospel where Christ was named. Now, named is a verb, an aorist passive verb. Where was Christ named? Well, he was named in the place of his birth. They named him Jesus. You will bring forth she will bring forth a child, and Joseph, you will name him Jesus. Now, in its closest sense, we're talking Bethlehem. But I think what this is saying is Paul is explaining to the Roman Jews why he is talking to Roman Jews. Why is he not proclaiming in Israel? Well, he has sought to strive to preach the gospel, not where Christ was named. I think this says, I'm an apostle to the nations. I am not an apostle to Israel. And Israel, they have their apostles. Now, that is taking that in a very literal sense there. Most people would take that, of course, to be, hey, if there's already a church, then I'm going to go on. But you know, Paul, everywhere he went, the first place he went was the synagogue. And even to Rome, read Acts chapter 28, and what's he do when he gets to Rome and has an opportunity? He goes into the synagogue. Well, they certainly talked about Christ there. Christ had been named there. They knew the details, even I would say, about the death, burial, and resurrection of Christ. As a matter of fact, I would say that the Roman synagogue had already rejected Christ. So they knew about Christ. Christ had been named in the Roman synagogue. Why is he going to the Roman synagogue? Why not just go out to the Roman roads and preach to total pagans? And he didn't do that. Everywhere he went, Corinth, Philippi, you name it, he goes to the synagogue. Or Philippi didn't have a synagogue, but he went to the place of prayer out by the river. Well, why would you go to the place of prayer if you're striving not to preach where Christ has already been preached? Let's go out again to, we could see it more in Areopagus or Mars Hill, the place, just the marketplace. Why don't you go there? And yet that doesn't seem to be Paul's MO, if you will. So I think here, when he speaks about this, I strive to preach preach the gospel, not where Christ was named. He's saying, I don't do this in Israel. In fact, remember, is it the book of Galatians, I believe, where Paul says, in Judea, at the churches of Galatia, I'm not known there. They don't know my face there. They know Peter, they know James, they know John, they don't know me. They've heard of me. They could tell you my name and some of the details about me, but they've never seen me. I don't accept invitations to their fall revival. That's not where I am. So I take that verse, again, verse 20, not as it's normally taken to go to unreached people is how it's normally taken, but rather to go to the nations, that is not in the location where Christ received his name. It's interesting, where Christ was named. And it uses the word anoma. We get the word name from it, anoma, where Christ got his noma. He got his name tag. I don't go there. Again, because there's other people doing that. Now, maybe a missionary today, someone who feels a desire to be a missionary. I can see some value in saying, I don't want to go to the places that already have a dozen churches. I want to go someplace that, doesn't have a church, a town that doesn't. This is where I want to go. And I think there can be something noble about that. I think that, especially in church planting, if there's already some strong churches there proclaiming the gospel, maybe there's not the need for you to go start another one. I used to joke when I was pastor in Katy, and Katy was a suburb of Houston, and might I say it was a rich white suburb. I don't know about white because actually it had people from all over the world. In fact, I believe the Houston school district has more languages spoken in that school district than any other school district in the country. And Katy was a very international city in that sense. But a lot of rich white people live there too, and that's who went to the churches. And anyway, I used to joke how God had a special place in his heart for rich white people. I knew this because all of these church planters were coming in. Every school had a church planter. God just laid on my heart, Katy, Texas, and I just desire to reach people for Christ there. This was happening one school after another, hundreds of schools. They were all these church planters coming because God has a special place in his heart for rich white people. Now, that tells me a little bit that church planters are looking kind of for comfort. This is a place that can support me. This is a place that is comfortable. To some of those, I want to say, hey, if Christ, if you're really wanting to start a church, why don't you think about Peñasco, New Mexico, or maybe Truchas, or Tierra Maria, some of these places that don't have a church at all. Why don't you go there? I mean, the Mormons they're going to do it. They'll beat you there. The Jehovah's Witnesses will be there. There's not a Baptist church. There's not, in many cases, even a Catholic church. There's not a Methodist church. There's not a Presbyterian church. There's not a Calvary Chapel. There's not a Bible church out there. Why don't you go to one of those places? And that's the way we typically apply this passage. And it's not a bad application. I just think it's not exactly what Paul is meaning there when he says that. I think he means, I don't go to Israel. I'm an ambassador to the nation. Let's see. Russell in Kent. I'm so excited we have Russell and Ash here. In just a moment, I'm going to bring something up here, but I'll wait till I get to Ash. Are we able to get sound from my computer?
I think so, yeah.
He thinks so. I love the confidence. I said that to give him a warning because I see Ash is coming out. But let's go to Russell in Kent, United Kingdom. Oops, what happened to Russell? I lost Russell's question.
Russell right there.
Russell. There we go. Sorry, Edith. I'm coming back to you too. In Judges, Russell has a question from Judges. Judges 15, verses 18 and 19. Did the water come forth out of the donkey's jawbone? Sounds like one of 30 amazing Bible stories you need to know. Or you may not know. Let's check it out here. And he was sore athirst and called upon the Lord and said, Thou hast given this great deliverance unto the hand of thy servant. And now shall I die for thirst and fall into the hand of the uncircumcised? But God clave an hollow place that was in the jaw, and there came water thereout. And when he had drunk, his spirit came again, and he revived. Wherefore he called the name thereof En Hakor, which is in Lehi unto this day. Lehi being the location. En Hakor, the well of him that called or cried out. En or Ein is a spring or a well. Gideon went to Ein Herod. This is En or Ein Hakor. Ein Gedi is, or En Gedi. En Gedi, Ein Gedi, you see it spelled both ways. The oasis at En Gedi. Ein Dora. Ein Dora is where Samuel was conjured up from the dead. Remember the witch at Ein Dora, or the witch at En Dora? I'm giving you the Hebrew lesson today here. En Dora. Remember Bewitched? What was her name? Samantha? Remember her mother-in-law? Endora. That's where they got the name. Little biblical knowledge to whoever the writer was, as they're thinking, what can we call the mother-in-law? Endora. That's where that witch was in the Bible. Now, so did the water come forth out of the donkey's jawbone? Okay, here we have the place that was in the jaw. It could be the place that was in Lehi. I am going to take my Tanakh here, and we're going to see what they have to say. But I'm going to hand it off to Corey, and he's going to find Judges chapter 15, verses 18 through 19, and then we'll read it. I got my glasses ready to go for reading of that. So, God clave a hollow place that was in the jaw. So was the hollow place in the jaw, or was the hollow place in Lehi? If you look down, as I've got Lehi right here, we've got Hebrew Strong Word 3896. Now, if we go up to jaw, we've got Strong's Word 3895. So let's bring up and see Strong's Word 3895 is, I want you to look here at the Hebrew. 3 letters going right to left. Now look at 3896. 3 letters going right to left. Notice it's the same letter. Same letters. So word 3895 is translated as cheek or jaw or jawbone. And 3896 is translated as Levi, or Lehi, a place in Judah. So one, basically, they are transliterating, and one they are translating. And here we come back to the King James, we come to the English, and they're taking one the translation and one the transliteration. So it is a good question. Did the water come forth out of the donkey's jawbone? Now, let's check in the Hebrew Tanakh, chapter 15, verse 19. It says, let's see. Shall I die of thirst and fall into the hand of the uncircumcised? But God split the hollow place that was in Lehi, and water came out, and when he had drunk, his spirit was restored, and he revived. Therefore he called the name of it En Hakor, which is in Lehi to this day. So, if you take the translation that the Jewish people have, or probably if you were to ask the rabbi and say, hey, in Judges chapter 15, verse 19, how does this water come out from a jaw? The Jews probably going to say, might not have come from a jaw. It came from Lehi, the town. There's a hollow place in Lehi, whatever a hollow place means there, and we could look that up and just see here. It's the word to pound. So probably a bowl-looking place, and water came out. Now, it would be interesting then to check and I tell you what, Corey, just run into the book room and get the Jewish commentary from the book of Judges and find chapter 15, and he'll give us a commentary on it in a moment, or point to me, and we'll get there to see what the commentary has to say. You know, another thing we could do here is to go to Chabad.org, and at Chabad, under Learning and Values, Text and Writings, and then Tanakh, the Hebrew Bible. We pull up Tanakh, and we're looking in the prophets, because the book of Judges is in the Nevi'im, and we want chapter 15, and we're going to show Rashi's commentary. And let's go down to verse, what was that? Verse 19, yes. Okay, this particular translation, and it's a Jewish translation, does have the socket which was in the jawbone. Water came out of it, and he drank, and spirit revived. Therefore, it's called in Hakor, which is in Lehi to this day. Now, Rashi, says the socket within which the tooth rests. This is shaped like a mortar, the fountain that came through the prayers of the one who called God. Okay, so Rashi, famous Jewish commentary, does take it as coming from the jawbone. And it looks like this translation of the Tanakh that we looked at a moment ago actually takes it from the place there. My guess is that you're going to be able to find the fact that it goes both ways. And I tell you what, I'm going to hand this back over to Corey and see if you can find anything about Lehi right in that section right there. And we'll see what a Jewish commentary has to say. So did water come forth out of the donkey's jawbone? If so, it looks like, according to this, the place, you notice he says the socket in which the tooth rests, which is shaped like a mortar. And that Hebrew word, again, if we go to the hollow, the Hebrew word is a molar or a mortar. So it could be the molar, the mortar place that was in the jaw, the place in the back where the big teeth of a donkey would set, and water comes out of that. And he kind of uses the jawbone as his drinking fountain in that case. Now, the strange thing about that was not only drinking out of a jawbone, but wherefore he called the name thereof in Hakor. I guess you could commemorate the place, but it says, whatever this is in Lehi unto this day. That's the strange place, if it's, is the jawbone still producing water, and it's the place of drinking of the jawbone? Good question. Here's my hunch. You could go either way. That we don't know because of the Hebrew word here. We don't know, is this a place, or is this an actual jawbone? Let's, for one more, let's look at Judges 15, verse 19. Let's see if, so Bollinger, clave, a hollow place that was in the jaw, he says equals clave, open, the hollow that is in Lehi. He seems to go for a place rather than the donkey's jawbone.
Yeah, it says rock. I think it's that last sentence.
And right.
Yes.
Okay. So, from the Jewish commentary, Let's see. Samson breaks the bond, slays 1,000 Philistines with the jawbone of an ass. Faint after his smashing triumph, he cries out in thirst to God, who answers with a miraculous fountain that issues from the rock. And then it has a footnote. The curious Hebrew phrase, Hamaktesh Asher Balehi, in 1519, might mean that the fountain emerged from the depression in the rock at Lehi, the site of the battle, or more creatively, from the socket of the jawbone of the ass. According to the second possibility, Lehi, literally cheekbone, is so called because of the victory that Samson secured there with the jawbone of an ass. The image of the saving waters issuing forth from the jawbone is a literary parallel to the honey that Samson earlier extracted from the carcass of a lion. In both situations, life-giving sustenance emerges out of something dead, decaying, and defiled. Now, what this particular commentary in Judges says is that the more creative interpretation is that the water comes out of the jawbone. I think we would have to take it and say, and I'm comfortable with this. This does not bother me. I'm comfortable with saying the grammar allows us to see that there is a hollow at Lehi from which water came forth, and it had a spring, and it's in Lehi unto this day. Or water came forth out of the hollow in the jaw. And if you take the more creative way, it's maybe a little more of a miracle. Because water springing forth from the ground is not the most unusual thing there is. Even suddenly, I've talked about this before in the neighborhood we live, springs just pop up, always in the middle of the road. But they come up, especially this time of year. I don't know what it is about all of it, but springs pop up. And wasn't a spring there before, but now, or there is a spring, and it's always been there, whatever. You got both of them. So it's kind of cool when you're thirsty and water pops up out of the ground, and that could have been what happened. But that's not necessarily supernatural. And then it would be supernatural if you got the jawbone of a donkey and out of where his tooth socket was becomes a drinking fountain. It's kind of cool. That then does make, as the commentary mentions, it does make this kind of parallel with killing the lion and later getting the honey out of the lion and using the jawbone to kill all those Philistines and later getting sustenance out of the jawbone. Interesting parallel that is given there. So did the water come forth out of the donkey's jawbone? I don't know. It came out of Lehi. How's that? Good question. Now we have Ash in Buckinghamshire, and then Edith is up next. Excuse me, Ash, I want you to know that we're going to see if we have volume. I don't know. You think I'm set right for volume? We're going to see. If not, you'll get it. The Free British Pronunciation Guide. Buckinghamshire. There we go, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, yeah, there he goes.
Buckinghamshire.
Ash from Buckinghamshire. I don't really know now how you pronounce it, but because of that guy's deep voice every time, I can only do it. I can mimic him. That's it. So today we have Ash from Buckinghamshire. We're glad you're here, Ash from Buckinghamshire. I knew that there was something about that. In the United States, we would say Shire, Buckinghamshire. And I knew that the British kind of pronounced that Shire kind of like a drunken sailor. Buckinghamshire. So I got it pretty close, didn't I? So Ash from Buckinghamshire. We're glad you're here, Ash. Will the Jews be using Paul's epistles in the tribulation as how they were in the as they were in the transition period? Thanks. I think possibly, but not primarily, and they don't have to. They might just be using this, the Tanakh, the Old Testament. And from this alone, you can get the prophetic program. From this alone, you can get that Messiah is going to return, that there's a day of Jacob's trouble, that in that day of Jacob's trouble, you better lift your head high, for your redemption draweth nigh. You better get ready. You better live according to the law. You better know that there is going to be one who is going to come. There's going to be an abomination of desolation. So many things that you can know from this alone. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if they don't gain some additional insight to going in, let's say, to the book of Romans, as they're sort of saying, what in the world has happened here? And they begin to search, and they begin to say, hey, Paul explained this to some Jewish people in Rome, and the explanation that he gave is perfect for understanding where we are today. So I think that perhaps some additional insight. Now, and you implied this in the way you have worded your question. The thing that we have to remember is that the Pauline gospel, by grace through faith, not of works, outside of the law of Moses, that is going to end with the rapture. So they will not be using the Pauline epistle in order to discover what the gospel is, and they will, like the Philippian jailer, call upon the name of the Lord and be saved. They will have to rightly divide Paul. Maybe Charles, who gave the idea, that's why we need to get the blue letter edition going, so that it'll explain to them, hey, you guys need to read the stuff that's in whatever color is the Jewish color of this. And that would help them to see, hey, this is the Jewish stuff that is Pauline. It is almost hard to imagine that the Jewish people don't, if they're turning to Jesus, that they don't say, I think there's been some material written about Jesus. And they look into Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, where Jesus was a minister of the circumcision, confirming the promises to the Father. They begin to see him as the Messiah. They maybe even turn to the book of Acts, and they begin to say, this is where we messed up back our nation so many generations ago. That's where we got off track, and now let's get back on track. And the New Testament could give them some great guidance to it. But I think they can find everything they need right here in the Tanakh. And that can be a blessing for them. Thanks, Ash from Buckinghamshire. Glad you're here. Ash, I usually don't ask this question, but how old are you? I want to know how old you are. And the reason I say this is because Ash it sounds like a young man's name. And I'm just wondering if there is actually a young man in Buckinghamshire that is interested in the things of the Lord.
Might be short for Ashley.
I hadn't thought of that. Corey says maybe it's short for Ashley. I don't think so. I think Ash is a guy. No older than 29. This is my total speculation. We will see if I'm a prophet when Ash responds. Now, Russell in Kent, he's more my age. One, he's got enough money to buy me lunch. He already told me he would. Young guys don't have any money. They're raising kids and all that. And Russell is, it's a name from the 50s, 60s. Am I right there, Russell? Now, you said Ash was what?
Says I'm 32.
Oh, 32. Thank you. That's not coming up on here, Nathan. Have we lost our text again? 32. So I was a little bit off, but that's still a young man. And congratulations, Ash. I appreciate it. And you are Ash and not Ashley, right? Just to make sure.
I am male.
Good. I knew that had to be right. I knew I wasn't talking to Ashley. Okay, now back to our questions here. There we go. Edith. Here we come, Edith, in the Ozarks of Missouri. Beautiful little town in Missouri. Forgot the actual name of the town. We looked it up once, though. I saw your courthouse. Nice place. Edith, I've heard different interpretations of Ephesians chapter 5, verse 26. Does the first part mean to be angry in the Spirit? And how should the second part be interpreted? I love Ephesians 5:26. And it's one of these passages that I think, let's see, maybe 5:26 is actually the wrong reference. 5:26 is that he might sanctify and cleanse it with the washing of the water of the word. I think it is, I think that we are, let me back up here. Well, seems like it should be so easy for me. There we go. 4:26. Edith, correct me if I'm wrong. I think we're talking about 4:26, which is be angry and sin not. Let not the sun go down upon your anger. So with that, you know what? You're right, Tara. Ashley is a guy's name. I know a guy named Ashley. So it does go either way, doesn't it? Ash is 32 and lives in Buckinghamshire. And I'm glad. And Russell's from South Africa. Afrikaans. I would like, Russell, when we have lunch, Edith, sorry, I'll come back to your question. When we have lunch, Russell, I would like to hear about your South African experience. My parents were missionaries in Zimbabwe. And this was in the 80s, and so it was in the Mugabe years, but the best of the Mugabe years, if you can have such a thing. And it was in the, de Klerk years of South Africa. And the whole experience, and a lot of Zimbabwe farmers, of course, ended up having to leave, and a lot of South African farmers probably did too. Were you a farmer in South Africa? Is that your story? I would be interested in knowing that. Yeah. Let me know your story sometime, Russell. Okay, now back. It is 4:26. Be angry and sin not. I like this question. I think it is a often misinterpreted question or statement here in the scripture. I think most preachers, if you bring up Ephesians 4:26, they're going to say that the verse right here says, yes, there is a righteous anger, but don't let your anger lead to sin, and be sure you are not angry anymore by the time the sun goes down. And basically, their fuller sermon on that would be, anger is a very bad thing. They would say anger can have its place, but it's a bad thing and it's always going to lead to bad things. And they would say, hey, husbands and wives, they probably give this little lie. My wife and I, we decided never to go to bed angry. And the truth is, once they had to stay up for 14 days. But this really is not saying, in the sense that we take it, don't ever go to bed angry. I think this is saying, when you're angry, be angry right then. Don't let the sun go down on your anger. Anger that is held for tomorrow is worse than anger that is expressed today. And there is some ability, I think, there is, there in the Christian world today, there is this angst towards anger. You're not supposed to be angry. And anger is a bad thing. Whereas I think when you look at this, be angry, that is an imperative. Let's go right over here. Be angry, triple underline. That means it's an imperative. Be angry and sin, and be angry and do not sin, the sun not let it set upon the provocation. Now, I think the sin is not being angry. The sin is saying, oh, I'm so mad, I should take care of business, but I'm just going to let things go. That's what the church has done for a generation or two, is the church has not gotten angry, Christians have not gotten angry when God's name was being defamed. They have not gotten angry when the church and its message was being dragged through the dirt. The church has not gotten angry when the word of God was trampled upon. The church has not gotten angry when Jesus was made a vulgar art piece. And the church is not supposed to get angry. The church is just supposed to turn the other cheek. And let's just wait. It'll be better tomorrow. And that was a sin on the church's part. I think that for the church and for the Christian, there is a time when it's time to get angry. And probably that time is earlier than we in American society, at least, and our British friends probably over here, as well, tend to put off anger more. Maybe you Brits do it even longer than we do. I don't know. And there needs to be the expression of anger. There needs to be the thing that says, we don't put up with this. You know, I think this is why some people are, and I find this especially among nominal Christians or diehard evangelicals. Nominal Christians or diehard evangelicals get put off by me. No surprise to me. They're the ones that, they block me on Facebook and they get mad and they tell me, what a lowlife I am and all those kind of things. And I think they do it because I get angry more than they're comfortable with as a believer. But what they are doing and what they have done, these nominal Christians and diehard evangelicals, is they have just let the devil walk away with our children and our grandchildren in the next generation. And we're supposed to just say, go ahead, sweet little devil. We're just going to love you into heaven. Oh, it's all going to be good. Our children and our grandchildren, they love Jesus and they're always going to love Jesus and love the Bible. And they have become God-hating Marxists, because we never got angry. And I think there needs to be some more anger in the church. You go back a couple of generations, and maybe, maybe they overdid it. I don't know. But the church used to kind of be known for its anger. Remember Billy Sunday, the evangelist Billy Sunday? I mean, Billy Sunday would scare the Sunday living daylights out of you in his, preaching against liquor and all that kind of stuff. And the church really was known for being angry. Again, maybe there wasn't a balance of grace, and maybe they didn't teach the grace message and all those kind of things. And that's probably true. But they did stand for something. And churches today and preachers today don't stand for anything. And it is pretty difficult when it's difficult to stand for something and not get angry. If you have any convictions at all, you're going to get angry, especially in our world today. Now, I think, again, the sin that is spoken here is not the anger or the expression of anger. The sin is not expressing your anger. Paul says, let not the sun go down upon your wrath. That is to say, I've still got my wrath and the sun has set. Somewhere you need to pick up the phone and take care of it, or the pen, or whatever it is, and take care of it. You know that I like to watch The Rifleman. I know The Rifleman is fake, but it did express some 1950s, early 1960s American values, values of Western civilization, basically. and it expressed them through the old Western. One of the values that I have seen in now watching 4 seasons of The Rifleman is the value of taking care of business right here and now. No need to let this go on. I think that was a very strong value in Western civilization, is that the Western culture took care of business. And when there was someone who was disrespectful to their mother, it didn't take but half a minute to get that out. When there was someone that said something that was unseemly, it took 30 seconds to get the soap out and wash that out of that mouth. And it only takes once of getting your mouth washed out with soap to say, I'll remember not to say that word next time. And it only takes once of, being slapped into tomorrow to remember not to disrespect your mother. Now, the way parenting is done, the way education is done, the way police work is done, or justice is done, it is, the guy's going to be old and gray before anything is ever dealt with in the justice system. But in the parenting system as well, you just leave that disrespect until another day. You're going to be able to tell them a nice, pretty story, and the moral of the story is that you be nice to your mother. And they're going to have some tears eventually, and they're going to grow up to be just beautiful teenagers. It's a lie. It doesn't work. So, when your kid's a tiny little tot and they disrespect their mother, make sure they never forget the moment. You can do that without being abusive at all. But whatever the means is of expressing that, make sure they never forget the moment. And when your 6-year-old comes in and says some word that they heard on television or that they heard from the friend, neighbor, or whatever, look, Dove soap, Irish Spring, or what's the one that's 99 Ivory? That's it, 99.98% pure, or whatever it is. Take that, use lye if you have to, it doesn't matter. Get the bar of soap and put it in the mouth. It tastes nasty. And they'll remember not to say that word again. And you'll have a child then that you can trust to go out into open society and make good decisions. And now, that kind of thing, I think to express the anger and get it expressed is a good thing. We'll have to mature some as a society to be able to deal with that, because our society, especially our Christian society, doesn't know what to do with angry people. And maybe we don't even know how to handle the anger there. Manny, we'll check on your request. See, it's about a donation. Normally we send out donation receipts right away, and I write a little card with them. And I don't remember writing you a little card, so let me check on that. Appreciate that. William goes to Matthew chapter 13, verse 24 for his question. And the question, the tares among the wheat. Another parable put he forth, saying, the kingdom of heaven is like unto a man which sowed good seeds in his field. While men slept, the enemy came and sowed tares among the wheat. The tares among the wheat parable was used to answer a question regarding homosexuals. Do you suppose this was a rightly divided approach by the teacher? I don't think so. I don't know exactly what the application was, but I don't know how you get any kind of answer towards homosexuality of the tares among the wheat unless you're just using that as an illustration. So the reason I say that is these words right here. The kingdom of heaven is likened unto. So the parable here is going to be about the kingdom of heaven. the kingdom of heaven is a future physical fraternal kingdom. And beginning in Matthew chapter 13, you have here, it's telling about, between here and the kingdom, how do we get there? It does not take the age of grace into account. It is going to be almost always about the Jewish people and the Jewish nation and what happens. Now, is there some incidental application about the church or about the culture, maybe about homosexuality? There could be some incidental application that may or may not be true. But I'm always a little uncomfortable taking a scripture and saying, okay, this sheds some light on it. All it does is incidentally shed some light on it. That is to say, here's a truth that dovetails. Now, if they presented it that way, here's a truth that dovetails. This passage is actually about something else, but I think we can see some truth here. If they did that, I'm probably okay with it if they gave a pretty good disclaimer. But often what we forget to do is give the disclaimer, and so we end up people thinking that the parable of the tares and the wheat has something to do with homosexuality when it doesn't. It has something to do with the kingdom of heaven. Incidentally, I think all of the parables of Jesus, 100% of them, have to do with the kingdom of heaven, and I could prove that through some scripture. But as we take this particular parable, and you see that now you've got tares and wheat, and what are you going to do? Are you going to leave them together? I don't know what about homosexuality we would be able to bring in from that particular issue, how we would bring that in together. So I don't think it was a rightly divided approach. I think it could have been an evangelical approach, and sometimes right dividers give evangelical answers. And an evangelical answer is pretty much a covenant theologian answer, and a covenant theologian answer is every promise in the book is mine, every chapter, every verse, every line. And they are looking into every passage of Scripture and saying, what is God doing to sanctify me? What is God doing to save me? What is God doing to work in my life from this passage? And so they apply everything to me, my family, my church, my community, my world. And in doing that, again, they just miss the great consequence. And I suppose here, you take Samson drinking out of the jawbone of an ass, and I suppose that, you say, hey, now let me close the sermon here today. We've talked about this amazing story. I wonder how many of you are thirsty today. How many of you are crying out to God and you are saying, God, I've done all this great work for you, and now I stand parched in a dry land. How many of you, brother, is it you? Sister, is it you? Mother, is it you? Father, is it you? Boy, is it you? Well, we'll have an invitation now, and I want to invite you to come to Christ, who is the fountain of living water. He said, come unto me, and I will give you, and you will never thirst again. Now, as the choir stands to sing, fill my cup, Lord, I lift it up, Lord. You come, yes, you, sir. You come, Boy, I got into my old Baptist ways, didn't I? Now, that takes and twists a passage of Scripture beyond recognition and makes it kind of a name it and claim it. Because of what happened to Samson so many thousands of years ago, then I know that I am always going to have my spiritual, emotional thirst quenched. Well, I don't know that there is that application there. I think, again, the application is that now I know the Bible. It's a good thing to know the Bible, the unfolding revelation. So would I apply that as a right divider regarding homosexuality? I wouldn't. And again, maybe I would look at that and find something later. Maybe if I heard his answer, I'd say, oh, well, there's something I didn't see there, and I can see where it's coming from. But I don't think I would go so far as to make the application that is there today. Okay, out of time here today. Thanks for your questions from Buckinghamshire. and Kent and Aliso Viejo and the Ozarks and Georgia, wherever we were today. Glad to have you. And by the way, this is on sale. Dispensationalpublishing.com. It is our special this week, and it is, that's so cheap. You should get one now before you pay full price, $13.96. It's a nice deal to look up and see. Is it a jawbone or is it a lehi? And so many other benefits. In fact, the benefits are listed there. Why would a Christian want this Jewish copy of the Tanakh? There, I give you 6 reasons. And you can even take a look inside. It's not showing up here, but I think normally it shows there. But if it doesn't, click that download button right there. It'll show up for you. I think I've got my security settings where it's not showing that stuff on mine. But nonetheless, $13.96. While you're at it, you ought to order Government and Christianity. Is it right behind the computer there? Little book by Joseph A. Seiss, Government and Christianity. He was a famous dispensationalist. He wrote it in 1861 as the United States was approaching its Civil War. And I think it's $3.95, if I'm not mistaken. Just a small little sermon transcript, basically, that he published. And it'll familiarize you with Joseph A. Seiss, who wrote about the Witness of the Stars. He wrote about pyramidology. He wrote about 100 books on the text of the Scripture. He was a good dispensationalist. You'll agree with him some, you'll disagree with him some in Government and Christianity. But it's interesting to see how he deals with it. A couple of good things there for you. I look forward to seeing you tonight, 7 p.m. Mountain Time, and we will come together for the book of Ezekiel in the 40th chapter of the book of Ezekiel, looking at the millennial temple and those millennial sacrifices. It'll be a lot of fun together. Hope you'll join us, and then back tomorrow morning for Ask the Theologian. God bless you. We shall see you soon.